Hello everybody, it's been certainly a long time. Lately I have been busy with running away from Taliban forces due to the fact that I stole a Krabby Patty formula and I had to hide away inside Krubera cave systems. All the while I had to manage the fatigue I was facing, the stress that could not even... Metro Exodus, if you're unfamiliar with the concept, which if you aren't, then why did you click this video? It is a game developed by 4A Games and Deep Silver set in a post-apocalyptic world. It is the third installment of the series, with the previous ones being Metro 2043 and Last Light, which some of you uncultured buffoons don't know the lore of, because apparently not everyone took the time to play the prequels, so I'll just quickly sum it up here. 2043 starts off with the main character, Artyom, waking up in his home station exhibition. We then proceed to find out about the appearance of some new dangerous mutants called Dark Ones, monsters that can communicate telepathically and are pretty much just Slenderman reskins. A man named Hunter arrives at the station, and shortly after guns go blazing before this smartass just decides to go fight the Dark Ones alone, because he apparently thinks he's the main character. Look at that dumbass go. Although before he left he gave you a dog tag and told you to reach police in case he doesn't return, and yeah, you guessed it, he doesn't return. So you leave for police, meet a few people on the way there, some get shot, some eaten alive, up until you reach police and speak with the Order, the faction Hunter used to be a part of. You go to the colonel and you're like, "Yo, ka, these Dark Ones really phantom text my station, and I think they might random ones here too. Damn, ka." Then we rally the Rizzlers ASAP, and you end up blowing them up, because the only way of solving a conflict is through firepower. In Last Light not much happens, you just hunt a helpless child, get captured by neo-Nazis, escape, get betrayed, get captured again, but this time by communists, ride a boat with a cool guy, have sex, and at the end you end up finding out that the Dark Ones were actually just chill guys that would unwillingly make people go insane, because what do you know, the only way of solving a conflict isn't firepower, oddly enough. And that's pretty much the first two games, and now moving on to Exodus. One of the things I really liked about this game were the characters. I loved how appealing and endearing they were designed. Usually when I'm playing single player shooters, I just bleach through the levels with guns blazing and just skip any dialogue I find unimportant. But in this game, oh, I just found every single dialogue, no matter how minor it was, interesting. There was just something that made me want to sit down for a moment, put the objective aside, and just have a drink with my comrades or with some old deranged cripple guy. It's those moments that make the game really stand out. Atmosphere. Throughout the whole game, I didn't feel like I was watching Artyom's story. I felt like it was my own story. The immersion this game has on you is just incredible, and this can be partially because of the fact that Artyom barely speaks a word because he's deaf or something, I don't know, and because of the karma system. This is another thing I absolutely loved about this game. The concept of your actions having consequences really makes this game realistic, which only adds to the immersion factor. It really made me think twice before committing mass genocide on a mission. A great example of this is the ending of the Taiga chapter, which genuinely makes you feel guilty for finishing it with bad karma, as the people living there, they're just children, to be honest. They just grew up there, people that were just afraid of you and just wanted to live peacefully, for the most part. And as I said, it's those details that make you feel guilty at the end of the chapter. Not the fact that you killed hundreds of innocent people, but the fact that you are a terrible wingman and you fumbled Alyosha's Haas. The level design is another thing that I want to praise. The Taiga region was personally my favorite. It was peaceful, beautiful, and honestly just a fresh breath of air from the metro systems and the sandstorms. Or would have been if not for that fucking bear. To be honest, one thing that did happen was that the game lost some of its scary factor compared to the first game, 2043. but that's quite reasonable since this one takes place on the surface, rather than in the metro systems. And it did have some portions that were meant to be scary, after all. But was I scared? Not really. You see, there were a lot of places that made me feel anxious because of my resources, because of the fact that I could have been cornered, or just because they were just really dark places, such as the underground lab thingy in the Caspian or the sewer system in Novosibirsk. But the only place I was terrified of dealing with was the last segment of the Dead City chapter, which was the Institute. I remember seeing one of those apes before entering the Institute and had ADHD from the first game, so I closed the game and left it for another day. Honestly, at first, I thought it was slightly weird why they don't have eyes anymore. But then I figured out that those weren't librarians, and they were just quite literally blind apes looking for food. One thing I did not really like was that I felt like they just forgot about the Dark Ones completely. Like, erased them out of the game, but although they did add Easter eggs, and there is a theory that suggests the fact that they actually help you find the medicine in Novosibirsk, which would be pretty damn cool if it would actually be true. And now, moving on to the end, the game has 2 endings which I am going to disclose now, and also spoilers incoming if you didn't figure that out by yourself for some reason. After retrieving the medicine Anna needed from Novosibirsk, you are brought back to the Aurora, which is your train, and are immediately administered blood transfusions, since you are on the brink of death. And now, here's the twist. In the bad ending, since your bad actions made some leave your crew, and made some die, you don't have enough people on the train to give you blood, so you end up dying due to blood loss. You wake up in a purgatory, where you meet some people from your past and find out that you're on for an endless voyage on the Aurora, in pitch darkness with no destinations and no stops, but at least Miller is there to keep you company since he has died in the mission as well, and he seems to be hopeful too, even comforting you, telling you that both of you did what you could and there's nothing you can really do to fix things now or to go back, so you just join him in the cockpit, but you slowly realize that this hope seems to be short-lived, as you're in for a long, long ride, one that will last until the end of time and until you are forgotten. On the other hand, if your actions were morally positive and you still have all of your crewmates on board, or at least some of them, you get enough blood to survive and live. This is the good ending, which is technically not so good since Miller dies in this one as well. Yeah, you pretty much have no way of saving Miller here, But even with that, he still had a well-written and satisfying death, if I can say so, since there is nothing you can really add to a character that has their development complete. Which means that Miller's story had to end, after all. It was heartbreaking. This was the first game ending I genuinely teared up to. And that is the point of it, a moment where Miller bids his farewell in a poetic way, and only wishes for you to take care of Anna, your wife, and his daughter. The one thing that honestly broke me down was the revelation that he has always wanted a son as well, and after all you've been through alongside him, he considers you to be his son. And this is the canon ending, an extremely well written one at that. An absolute cinema, if I can say so. And once I finished this game, I could only think of one thing. What an adventure this was. I was so immersed in the game to the point where I felt like it was my adventure, my achievement, and my story to tell to my grandchildren. How I escaped Moscow, how I fought the fanatics, how I was deceived by a group of cannibals pretending to be the government, how I saved hundreds of slaves in the Caspian, how I killed an enormous monster of a bear in the taiga, and how I risked my life in a dead city that was quite literally thriving off death. The developers were really clever, as the game is very good at teaching you how your actions will always have consequences, regardless of how minor or major they are, and this is another reason as to why the ending is so great in my opinion. It's an ultimate payback for your actions across the campaign, whether it be a good or bad outcome. In conclusion, should you play Metro Exodus? Absolutely. This game and franchise as a whole is something that I'm sure I won't be forgetting anytime soon, and it's something I will always recommend to anyone that's looking for a well-made story game. And thank you for watching and for listening me, yep, and see you in the next one, if there ever will be a next one.